It was a cold November afternoon in Chicago. The biting wind from Lake Michigan swept through the city streets, making people quicken their steps toward the warmth of their homes. On Michigan Avenue, one of the busiest streets in the city, small shops were preparing for the start of the holiday season. Among them was a modest pharmacy called Henderson's Pharmacy, which had operated at the same address for over 50 years. Inside the pharmacy, the owner, Mr. Henderson, a man in his early 60s with gray hair and reading glasses hanging around his neck, was organizing shelves while his employee Sarah worked at the register. The place had that characteristic smell of medicine and cleaning products, but it also gave off a welcoming aroma of freshly brewed coffee that Sarah always made for the regular customers. The door opened with the jingle of the bell above it. A woman hurried in, bringing with her a gust of cold air. She wore an elegant gray wool coat, already showing signs of wear. Her blonde hair was tied in a messy bun, and her green eyes showed a mixture of anxiety and determination. She appeared to be around 40 years old, and carried a designer handbag that, to a trained eye, was clearly authentic and expensive. The woman quickly walked through the aisles, picking up a few items: fever medicine, pain relievers, a digital thermometer, and some basic first aid supplies. Her hands trembled slightly as she placed the products in the basket. Sarah observed discreetly, noting the urgency in the customer's movements. When the woman approached the counter, Sarah smiled warmly. "Good afternoon. Did you find everything you needed?" "Yes, thank you," the woman replied, her voice refined but carrying palpable tension. "Please be quick. My daughter is very sick and I need to get back to the hotel." Sarah began scanning the items as the woman nervously rummaged through her handbag looking for her wallet. The total appeared on the screen: $143.67. "That will be $143.67, Sarah announced. The woman extended a sleek black credit card, one of those only millionaires possess. Sarah swiped the card and waited. A few seconds later, the machine emitted an unpleasant sound. "Declined" flashed on the screen in red letters. "How strange," the woman murmured, her face losing color. "Can you try again, please?" Sarah tried again. The same result. The woman began frantically searching her bag, pulling out another card. "Try this one." Declined again. A third card. Declined. By this time, a small line had formed behind the woman. She could feel impatient and judgmental stares burning into her back. Her hands trembled more intensely now, and tears began to form in her eyes. "I don't understand," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I have money. There are millions in my accounts. This doesn't make sense." Sarah cast an uneasy glance at Mr. Henderson, who approached. "Ma'am, I'm very sorry, but without a working form of payment, I cannot release the items." "My daughter has a high fever." The woman's voice rose an octave, desperation taking over. "She is only 7 years old and alone in the hotel room right now. I need this medicine." "I understand the situation, but I have a business to run," Mr. Henderson replied, without much empathy. "Perhaps you can call your bank." The woman grabbed her phone with trembling hands, but when she looked at the screen, her hopes collapsed even further. "It's dead," she murmured almost inaudibly. At that moment, a small, clear voice cut through the tension in the room. "I can help." Everyone turned to see where the voice came from. Near the entrance, holding a broom almost as tall as himself, stood a little boy who could not have been more than 10 years old. He wore simple, clean clothes, though patched in a few places. His brown eyes shone with a kindness that seemed out of place in such a harsh moment. His dark hair was slightly tousled, and his cheeks were faintly pink from the cold outside. "Tommy," Mr. Henderson sighed, "go back to your tasks, boy. This is not your concern." But Tommy did not move. Instead, he reached into the pocket of his worn jeans and pulled out a small, dented metal tin. It was an old cookie tin painted with faded designs. He carefully opened it, revealing crumpled bills, coins, and a few folded notes. "I have money," Tommy said, walking toward the counter with determination. "How much is missing?" Silence fell over the pharmacy. The woman looked at the boy with wide eyes, tears now streaming freely down her face. Sarah covered her mouth with her hand, visibly moved. Even Mr. Henderson seemed momentarily speechless. "Tommy," Sarah began gently, "that is your delivery money. You've been saving it to buy a Christmas present for your mother." "I know," Tommy replied simply. "But this lady's daughter is sick. My mom always taught me that when someone needs help and you can help, you help. That's how it's done." He began counting his money on the counter. There were $1 bills, a few fives, and many coins. Tommy had worked for months making deliveries for the pharmacy after school and on weekends, saving every penny. At that moment, his tin contained exactly $152. The woman could not stop crying. She knelt before Tommy, bringing herself to his eye level. "Dear," her voice choked, "I cannot accept this. This is your money. You worked hard for it. And you need it more than I do," Tommy said with the simplicity and wisdom that only children seem to have. "Besides, my mom always says the best gift we can give to the people we love is to do good for others. I think she will be happy to know I use the money to help someone." If you are enjoying this story, please subscribe to the channel and leave in the comments the city where you are watching. We want to know how far our stories are reaching. Sarah took Tommy's money with trembling hands and completed the transaction. The woman held the products against her chest as if they were the most precious treasure in the world. She then turned to Tommy, trying to compose herself. "What's your full name, dear?" she asked, her voice still shaky. "Thomas William Carter, ma'am. But everyone calls me Tommy." "Tommy," she repeated as if imprinting that name in her heart. "I'm Eleanor Ashford. And I promise you, looking into your eyes now, that I will return every penny. More than that, I will make sure you are rewarded for your kindness." Tommy simply smiled. "You don't need to reward me, Mrs. Ashford. I just want your daughter to get better." Eleanor quickly jotted down the pharmacy's address on a piece of paper Sarah handed her. "I will come back," she promised. "As soon as I sort out my cards, I will return." She hurried out of the pharmacy, and the doorbell jingled again. People in line returned to their shopping, some still commenting on what they had just witnessed. Mr. Henderson went back to his shelves, shaking his head, though a small smile touched his lips. Sarah approached Tommy and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You did a very beautiful thing, Tommy. Your mother will be so proud of you." Tommy shrugged, as if he had done nothing special. "It's just the right thing to do, Sarah." He picked up his broom and returned to his tasks, sweeping the pharmacy floor as if nothing extraordinary had happened. That night, when Tommy arrived home, he found his mother, Margaret, in the small kitchen of their 2-bedroom apartment. She worked as a nurse at a public hospital and often pulled double shifts to support the family after Tommy's father had abandoned them 3 years earlier. "How was your day, my love?" Margaret asked, preparing a simple dinner of soup and bread. Tommy hesitated for a moment. He knew his mother would worry when she found out he had given away all his saved money, but he also knew he couldn't lie to her. "Mom," he began, sitting at the kitchen table, "something happened today at the pharmacy." He told her the whole story. Margaret paused her work and listened silently. When Tommy finished, she came over and hugged him tightly. "Tommy," she said, her voice soft but full of emotion, "you know we were counting on that money for Christmas, don't you? We won't have much this year." "I know, Mom, but I couldn't just stand there seeing that lady so desperate. Her daughter is sick." Margaret held her son's face in her hands and looked deeply into his eyes. "You did the right thing, my love. I couldn't be prouder of you. You understood something that many people take a lifetime to learn, if they ever do. Money comes and goes, but the kind of person you are lasts forever." They had their simple soup that night, yet somehow it felt like the best meal they had ever shared. Meanwhile, across the city, at the luxurious Peninsula Hotel, Eleanor Ashford sat by her daughter Olivia's bed. The girl was finally sleeping peacefully after taking the medicine. Her fever had begun to subside. Eleanor looked around the hotel room that had been her home for the past 2 weeks. Her life had turned upside down so quickly. Just a month ago, she had been the CEO of a multi-million-dollar tech company she had founded herself. She lived in a mansion in San Francisco with driver's assistants and a life of unimaginable luxury for most people. Then her business partner, James Whitmore, someone she trusted completely, had committed massive fraud. He had embezzled millions from the company and, when discovered, tried to pin the blame on Eleanor. All her accounts were frozen during the investigation. Her lawyers said it could take weeks or even months to resolve. Eleanor had fled to Chicago with Olivia to escape the media frenzy. She still had money in various investments and properties, but without access to her bank accounts, she was effectively without immediate resources. She had sold some jewelry to pay for the hotel but was quickly running out of options. And then, that afternoon, a 10-year-old boy had done something that none of her wealthy friends, colleagues, or acquaintances had offered to do. He had helped a stranger without asking for anything in return. Eleanor picked up her laptop, which still had battery, and began searching. Thomas William Carter, Chicago, she typed. She needed to know more about this extraordinary boy. The following days were an emotional roller coaster. Eleanor finally managed to contact her lawyers through the hotel computer. The investigations were progressing, but slowly. James had fled the country, and untangling the web of lies he had created was proving more complicated than anyone imagined. But Eleanor had a personal mission now. She had made a promise to a 10-year-old boy, and if there was one thing Eleanor Ashford never did, it was break a promise. 1 week after the pharmacy incident, Tommy was at school when he was called to the principal's office. His heart raced. He hadn't done anything wrong that he could remember, but being summoned to the principal's office was never a good sign. When he entered the room, he was surprised to see his mother there, tears in her eyes but smiling. Beside her was Sarah from the pharmacy, and a woman Tommy took a moment to recognize. It was Eleanor Ashford, but she looked different, more composed, more confident. She wore an elegant suit and her hair was perfectly styled. "Tommy," Margaret said, her voice breaking with emotion, "Mrs. Ashford has something to tell you." Eleanor knelt before Tommy just as she had at the pharmacy that day. "Tommy, I promised I would return and reward your kindness. My bank accounts have finally been released. My name has been cleared of all charges, and my former partner is being prosecuted. But none of that would matter as much if it weren't for the lesson you taught me that day." She took Tommy's hand. "You showed me that true wealth is not in bank accounts or companies. It is in having a good heart and the courage to do what is right, even when it costs you something." From her coat, Eleanor pulled out an envelope. "Here is the money you lent me with interest." She smiled. "But this is just the beginning." Tommy opened the envelope. Inside were $500 in cash. His eyes widened. "This is not all," Eleanor continued. "I have created an educational fund for you. It will cover all your school expenses, from now through university, including the college of your choice. And if you decide to pursue a business career, I would be delighted to mentor you personally." Margaret began crying openly. "Eleanor, this is too much. We cannot accept this." "Please," Eleanor said, looking sincerely at Margaret, "let me do this. Your son changed my life that day. He reminded me of the kind of person I want to be, the kind of person I used to be before I got lost in the world of business and money. This is not charity. It is gratitude." If you are enjoying this story, stay with us for the final part, where you will discover how this casual encounter transformed not only one life, but an entire community. Tommy looked at his mother, then at Eleanor, and finally spoke with the simple wisdom that characterized him. "All right, Mrs. Ashford, but only if you promise one thing." "Anything, Tommy?" "Promise that if you ever see someone else in need, you will help them too. Just like my mother taught me. That way, kindness keeps spreading." Eleanor felt a lump in her throat. She nodded, unable to speak for a moment. When she finally regained her voice, she said, "I promise, Tommy. Actually, I have something more to tell you." She stood and walked to the window of the principal's office, looking out over the schoolyard. "You know, when I started my tech company 15 years ago, I had a mission. I wanted to use technology to improve people's lives, especially in underprivileged communities. But somewhere along the way, I lost that focus. I became more concerned with profits, growth, and impressing investors." She turned to face Tommy, Margaret, and Sarah. "Your act of kindness that day reminded me why I started all of this. So I made a decision. Eleanor reached into her bag and took out some documents. I started a foundation called Tommy's Heart. The foundation will identify young people like you, Tommy, children who demonstrate extraordinary kindness and compassion, and support them with scholarships, mentorship, and resources. But more than that, it will work with communities to create programs that teach and encourage kindness, empathy, and service to others. Margaret covered her mouth with her hands, her eyes glistening with tears. You named the foundation after my son? There could not be a better name, Eleanor replied. And Margaret, I would like to offer you a position in the foundation. We need someone with experience in caring for people, someone who has raised a child with such strong values. You would be the director of community programs if you accept. The salary would be 3 times what you earn now as a nurse, with full benefits. Margaret was trembling. Eleanor, I don't know what to say. Say yes, Eleanor smiled. Say that we will work together to spread the kind of kindness your son showed to the world. The following weeks were a whirlwind of changes for the Carter family. Margaret accepted the position at the foundation, meaning she could finally work only 1 shift and spend more time with Tommy. They moved to a larger and safer apartment, still in the same neighborhood, because Margaret insisted on staying close to her roots. Tommy's story quickly spread through the community. Local newspapers published articles about the boy who gave everything to help a stranger. Mr. Henderson's pharmacy became a kind of landmark, with people stopping by to see the place where the act of kindness had occurred. Mr. Henderson, inspired by Tommy, started a program at the pharmacy where customers could leave money in a community fund to help people who could not afford their medications. Sarah was promoted to assistant manager and became responsible for overseeing this fund. But perhaps the most significant change occurred in Eleanor herself. She realized that her crisis had actually been a blessing in disguise. She sold the majority stake of her tech company and dedicated herself fully to the foundation. Olivia, her daughter, who had fully recovered from the fever, became best friends with Tommy. The 2 families began sharing regular dinners, holiday celebrations, and everyday moments. 6 months after the pharmacy incident, the Tommy's Heart Foundation held its first major event, an award ceremony for young people who had demonstrated extraordinary acts of kindness in their communities. The event was held in an elegant hall in downtown Chicago, with hundreds of people in attendance. Tommy, wearing his first suit, sat nervously next to his mother in the front row. Eleanor was on stage, about to give her opening speech. 6 months ago, Eleanor began, her voice clear and strong. I was a woman who thought she had everything: money, success, recognition. But on a cold November afternoon, I discovered that I actually had none of what truly mattered. My credit cards were declined at a small pharmacy when my daughter was sick and I was desperate. In that moment of vulnerability, of complete despair, a 10-year-old boy did something that changed my life forever. She paused, her eyes finding Tommy's. Thomas William Carter gave me everything he had, not because he expected anything in return, not because I was important or powerful, but simply because it was the right thing to do. He taught me that true wealth is measured not by what we have in our bank accounts, but by what we carry in our hearts. The audience was in complete silence, each person absorbing her words. This foundation exists to honor not only Tommy, but all children and people who choose kindness over indifference, compassion over convenience, sacrifice over selfishness. Today, we will award 20 young people from across the Chicago area who have demonstrated extraordinary acts of kindness. Each will receive a scholarship and mentorship. But the true reward is not the money. It is knowing that your kindness inspired others and created ripples that will continue spreading. At the end of the event, Eleanor called Tommy to the stage. He walked hesitantly, his cheeks flushed with shyness. Tommy, Eleanor said, placing a hand on his shoulder. You didn't just help me that day. You saved my daughter, yes, but you also saved me. You reminded me who I really am and who I want to be. Because of you, 20 young people today will receive opportunities that will change their lives. Because of you, hundreds of families in Chicago will receive medical assistance through the fund your story inspired. Because of you, I learned that the greatest investment we can make is not in stocks or properties, but in kindness. The audience rose in a deafening ovation. Tommy, always humble, just smiled and waved shyly. That night, when Tommy and Margaret returned home, he looked out the car window at the passing city lights. "Mom," he said thoughtfully, "do you think I really made that much of a difference?" Margaret paused the car and turned to her son. "Tommy, do you remember the stone we threw in the lake when we went to the park last month? Remember how it created ripples that spread farther and farther?" Tommy nodded. "That's what you did that day at the pharmacy. You threw a stone of kindness into a world that sometimes feels like a still lake. And the ripples of that kindness are spreading farther than we can imagine. Every person touched by your story, every young person who received a scholarship today, every family that will get help with medications, they are all ripples of your kindness spreading." Tommy thought about this for a moment. "But I just did what you taught me, Mom. You deserve the credit, and I learned from my parents who learned from theirs," Margaret smiled. "Kindness works like that, my love. It passes from generation to generation, from heart to heart, and you are helping ensure it continues to pass on." 5 years passed. Tommy was now 15 and thriving at school. He kept regular contact with Eleanor and Olivia, and often volunteered at the foundation on weekends. The Tommy's Heart Foundation had grown exponentially, now operating in 10 states and helping thousands of young people. Mr. Henderson's pharmacy, which had once considered closing due to competition from big chains, was thriving. It became a model of compassionate community business, with other pharmacies across the country adopting similar assistance programs. Margaret had become a respected voice in community philanthropy, giving talks and helping other organizations implement compassion-centered programs. And Eleanor? She had found a purpose that all her corporate success had never given her. She and Olivia had moved permanently to Chicago, and Eleanor split her time between the foundation and spending time with those she now considered her true family, the Carters. On a sunny spring afternoon, Tommy was at the pharmacy helping Mr. Henderson, who was now 70, but refused to fully retire. The door opened and a young woman with a small child entered. She looked anxious, quickly searching the shelves. Tommy approached. "Can I help you find something?" "I need fever medicine for my son," she said, her voice tense. "He has a high temperature." Tommy helped her find what she needed. When they got to the counter, she tried to pay with her card, but it was declined. Her face went pale. "I don't understand," she whispered. "I know there's money in the account." Tommy looked at Sarah, now the manager, and they exchanged a knowing glance. "Don't worry," Sarah said kindly. "We have a community fund for situations like this." The woman began crying with relief. "I'll pay back. As soon as I figure out what's going on with my card, I promise I'll return." "We know you will," Tommy said with a smile. "And when you can, if you want, you can donate to the fund to help the next person. That's how it works. Kindness keeps spreading." The woman took her medicine and left, clutching it to her chest, just as Eleanor had done 5 years before. Tommy watched her leave and smiled. The ripples kept spreading. That night during dinner with his mother, Tommy reflected on how a simple act of kindness had transformed so many lives, including his own. He hadn't done it expecting any reward. He did it because it was the right thing to do. But the rewards had come anyway, not in money or fame, but in something far more valuable. The satisfaction of knowing he had made a difference, starting a wave of kindness that continued to grow. And somewhere in the city, Eleanor Ashford looked out the window of her foundation office, smiling as she reviewed the latest scholarship applications. On her desk was a framed photo. Her, Olivia, Tommy, and Margaret, all together, smiling. Below the photo, a plaque read, "The greatest wealth is a generous heart." Eleanor gently touched the photo. "Thank you, Tommy," she whispered, "for teaching me what really matters." And so, what began as a moment of despair in an ordinary pharmacy transformed into a legacy of kindness that would touch thousands of lives for generations. Because in the end, the most valuable things in life cannot be bought with credit cards or stored in safes. They are kept in the heart and multiplied when shared. Tommy Carter was only 10 years old when he gave everything he had to help a stranger. But in that simple act of kindness, he had given the world something far more valuable: hope, inspiration, and a reminder that each of us has the power to make a difference, no matter how young we are or how little we think we have to give. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with the city where you are watching. We want to know how far our stories are reaching, how far this message of kindness and compassion is spreading. Because just as Tommy taught us, every small act of kindness creates ripples that can change the world. And who knows, maybe your story will be the next one we share. After all, each of us has the power to be a hero in someone's life.